Clay, we're back with Enterprise, and we had a Rotten Horror Picture Show crossover feature where they were like,
yes.
we're going to watch Frankenstein. I was like, they've watched Frankenstein on Rotten Horror Picture Show. I was like, wonder what other classics that Trip is going to bust out from his depth of horror film knowledge. He seems to like Frankenstein quite a bit, I guess is the thing that we're to take away from this. But nothing against Frankenstein, but only the first one is. I don't think I've seen the other ones, but I think only the first one is something I would consider a classic. Bride of Frankenstein, I guess, is classic. Is that on the list for that?
Oh
show?
yeah, Bride of Frankenstein is generally, I think, considered a better movie than the first one. Like, when people who are in the know talk about it, it's generally Bride of Frankenstein is the pinnacle of that era.
Mm-hmm.
I was kind of hoping, if it were me writing the episode, and I don't know if they had some sort of license problem or something, but I would have been like, Frankenstein. We're watching 3 movies: Frankenstein, Bride of Frankenstein, and Chud.
Yeah.
Or something like another, a weird deep cut or something like that, or
Attack of the Killer Tomatoes. Yeah,
yeah. But I did have a lot of sympathy for T'Pol, because it reminded me a lot of the conversation between T'Pol and Trip. It reminded me a lot of conversations I have with my girlfriend, which is, do you mind if we watch Bride of Frankenstein tonight? And she's like, can I do literally anything else? And then eventually she watches it and she goes, oh, that was pretty good.
That's pretty good. You brainwashed her into liking something. It's always tough to get someone. It's even tough to convince myself to do something that I want to do. That's it. We're gonna take a break. We're gonna be talking about Horizon today. We're back full time with Enterprise, and we're back into the second half of Enterprise. So
It's been, dare I say, a long road.
It has been, yeah. I wouldn't say we got from there to here. I would say we just kind of tread water for a little bit. But we're back with Horizon. We're gonna break it down. We'll play a clip, and then we're coming back, and we're gonna break it down.
I didn't mean to undermine your authority, really. But you're being unreasonable. I just want us to be prepared.
Us. You keep talking as if you're a part of this crew.
It's still my home.
You turned your back on us a long time ago.
Is that what this is about? Me leaving?
Horizon is the 20th episode of the second season. First aired of Star Trek Enterprise. It aired on the 16th of April, 2003. Written by Andre Bormanis, directed by James A. Contner. In-universe date is exactly known. It's January 10th, 2153. In this episode, while Enterprise diverts to observe an unusual planet, it's almost today.
It's so close.
While Enterprise,
it's like a friend of mine once said he bought a lottery ticket, and he said, I almost won. I was off by one number on every one of the numbers. Mm-hmm. It's like, well, it's not really how it works, but
it's like Keno. When you miss everything, you still win because of how difficult it is to miss. In this episode, while Enterprise diverts to observe an unusual planetary event, Travis Mayweather takes time off to visit his family on the cargo ship where he was born and raised, the titular Horizon. We're back after a long break of Discovery with the second and final Travis Mayweather featured episode. He does not have a feature after this, which is something that we'll probably have more to say as we move along. But it's kind of interesting going back into Enterprise after we took like 4 weeks off for Discovery, and it felt much longer than that for some reason, but it's only been a little while. Coming back into Enterprise after that is... I found it like really shocking, sort of, to go back to an Enterprise. I think this episode is fine. It's like okay. Mm-hmm. I was living in the small details of this episode for some reason, and just kind of marveling at how the series is different from Discovery. And not that this is a great shakes or anything like that. I don't think this episode is terrible. I don't think it's fantastic. I think it's like a functional episode of Star Trek, but it's an episode that lived in these small moments that I thought in some ways elevated it. And I wasn't sure if I was just noticing it because there's like none of that in Discovery. Like the moment here that sticks out of my head is when Travis gets on the ship and he's talking to his mother and they're walking down. He just boards Horizon and she's like, he's telling her all these stories and she's sort of walking him to the room. The freighter goes to warp, and they have to grab onto a pole that's there. And while the ship is moving into warp, they have the face of the person who's nervous to fly sitting next to you in an airplane as the plane is taking off. And I was just like, what a small, wonderful little detail about early space travel and early warp travel on a very old ship at a point in Star Trek's history. It had moments like that, and I was just like, wow, I appreciate these things.
Yeah, I would say that's the most interesting stuff in the episode, because I found it very difficult for this one to keep my attention, because I was honestly, I don't know if it's just because of my own predisposition, but I was much more interested in the Frankenstein plot than I was the stuff on the horizon, just because it was, I don't know, it was just so by the numbers light family drama.
It's it's really trite. It has like it's functional as a story, but it doesn't have anything interesting or unusual to say about it.
Yeah, and even at the end when those guys show up and try to steal their ship or whatever, Travis builds them a gun, and the gun works perfectly, and then they're just gone, and it's just over. And I understand that it's like, well, it's about the brother trusting him or whatever, but it's, I don't know. As far as the story goes, it was fairly, trite is a good way to put it.
Very stock, an exceptionally stock story for going back to meet the family that you're estranged from, and everything's going to work out in the end, and the difficulties about not being there when your father died, and the sort of guilt and the brief moment where the main character considers leaving Starfleet to go back to their family on the freighter, and then is overturned by their mother, who says, "We're all proud of you." Extremely by the numbers. Really nothing else going on. But it did reminded me, of the Breaking the Ice episode, which was an episode that we liked just because it has these sort of small world-building details that are interesting. And I don't think it's good, but I think that all those details were kind of neat, and like you, I liked the T'Pol stuff, and I liked the brewing, the sort of difference between the upper echelon of Starfleet developing while these freighter captains are left behind, and how they have a resentment towards Starfleet and things like that. I like all that stuff. I wish they had gone more into it instead of the stock family thing, but those are kind of neat ideas, at least for what Enterprise is trying to do.
Yeah, I kind of wish if they had gone a little bit different way with that, because Travis's friend. Well, first I was going to say, what a big ask from Travis for them to go only 10 hours out of their way. Yeah. It's like I'm driving to New York and someone is like, "Oh, that's awesome. Could you drop me off in Ohio?"
Yeah.
And I'm under the impression they had to get there by a certain point so they wouldn't miss the volcano or something. Yeah, so it's kind of a big ask. But when his friend shows up, I can't remember her name, the girl who shows up like halfway through to talk to him.
Yeah.
And she talks about how they've missed some of their drop-offs and stuff like that, implying that Travis's brother is not pulling his weight. Yeah. I kind of wish the story had used that a little bit more, where maybe the problem that they get into is somehow born out of that, instead of just randomly being attacked by people that happen to come by.
Right. That wouldn't be a very Enterprise. That's kind of a standard Enterprise critique, I think. But at the same time, I kind of liked the attacking aspect, because it definitely is revelatory of space at this point before the Federation exists is still a wild, wild west situation where, it's very Star Wars. Freighter captains are just being attacked by pirates basically the whole time that you're moving around. So while I liked that, I would agree it's a slight distraction just from the family conflict that's going on. There's probably more of an interesting plot line between Travis and his brother and his mother than what they give you. But at the same time, I did it was one of the few times of Enterprise doing an alien attacking the ship that was like, there's a reason that this thematically works in this story, as opposed to just everyone hates the Enterprise in the rest of the Enterprise episodes.
Well, I just wish it had a little bit more. I wish it was, if it's not going to be directly tied in to this thing where it's like, Pizza the Hut shows up to get a bounty, or because Travis's brother cheated him on the last drop off or something like that. If it's not going to be like that, I wish it had been more of a catalyst for bringing into view the stuff that you were saying about the difference between Starfleet and these freighters who are much less equipped and have kind of fallen behind technologically and stuff like that. Because I think you can get out you can get more interesting drama out of using that as sort of a cover for the arguments, the family stuff. You know what I mean? Where it's like that Travis and his brother get into an argument about what's happening and his brother's blaming Starfleet for this, but he's really blaming his brother because his brother isn't there anymore, that kind of thing.
Yeah. I would personally have amplified it by, I do like the idea that human society is putting all of their eggs in the Starfleet basket, and like in a way that resources are maybe being taken away from the freighters and stuff like that, because they're trying to build this fleets of starships that are going to go out there and be the new cutting edge aspect of how humanity is. And you know, it's kind of the political era now, but it's like I wish that they had gone into the people left behind by this change more, and that it was you'd have to probably paint Starfleet as a little bit uncaring in some ways, which is probably something that the show doesn't want to do. But at least Starfleet is so focused on their goals that there's this entire subclass of people who are left with jobs that aren't really all as glamorous as everyone else is allowed to have, and that are sort of fading off into this irrelevancy in the near future, because we're not going to really see these people in the near future. So they do die out at some point. That would have been nice to have it be a little bit more personal there. And that was also, I don't think you have to paint Travis as greedy, but I think there's a legitimate anger about his family feeling that he left them behind if they explain that a little bit more.
Yeah. And what I think that also would do too is I think it would allow you to draw a starker contrast between Starfleet and the Federation. Because I don't think it's a problem to paint Starfleet in that light, because Starfleet in and of itself is a military exploratory operation.
Yeah.
The Federation, on the other hand, is the thing that has the values.
Yeah. The Federation guides Starfleet's values, and the Federation doesn't exist yet.
And I think ascribing too many of those values to be interchangeable with the Federation and Starfleet is kind of cuts you off from interesting story avenues, and also kind of is like, you know, puts you into this weird position where it's like the military is always right kind of thing.
Yeah.
Which is not what they're about.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's true. It's a good, I would have liked that to have been a background running subplot in Enterprise. I think that's kind of interesting. That because sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Well, Reed would fit into that as well. Like Reed's sort of military background is that conflict on the ship too.
Yeah, and like the show is about the formation of the Federation, and it's in theory, Enterprise is about driving towards the creation of the Federation and why the Federation is necessary. And one of the ways you can show that is by Starfleet maybe not always going the way that the Federation would, and realizing why that's not the right way to go. Not entirely dissimilar to what we talked about in Discovery, where it's like, if it's about the creation of the Federation or the recreation of the Federation, show why that's important and how things need to change in order for that to be a thing.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I definitely would have liked that. It's tough to. It's not really a criticism of this show, because I think that that's such a big idea that's probably deserving of a backgrounding subplot that's going on.
Yeah.
If they were to focus on Mayweather more, I think that he's the character to focus on that. It would also, that also pairs him against Reed more naturally, in that they are kind of in. They are the show could have written them as two opposite perspectives of that problem, which is that Reed comes from the military background, which is not particularly. Doesn't value Federation values. It values a kind of protectionist ideology, or like a sort of like, we're here to get the job done, as opposed to a value underpinning it in terms of exploration. But it also would have given Mayweather a different perspective because he would have gone into Starfleet and left that mentality behind, and it's a little bit of a foil to each other there.
He's not even in this episode, is he? Does he even
Reed?
show up? Like, yeah,
Reed is in it. He's eating in one scene.
Oh, that's right. Yes.
Yeah, but he doesn't do anything outside of that.
How would you have felt if they sent Reed with Travis for some reason?
Oh, I think in the way that the show exists currently, it wouldn't have added anything because I don't think Reed has a real point of view about that stuff. But if he had been written that way, he would have gone with Travis, and it would have been the contrast that's provided there.
Speaking of going with him, though, I was this episode is full of big asks because not only does Travis ask for them to drive 10 hours out of the way, as he's leaving, Trip is like, "Hey, do you mind giving me a tour of the engine room?" And I was like, the guy's just found out his dad died, and you want him to give you a tour of the engine room?
It's the father's death is funny in a lot of ways because, well, I guess Archer didn't know about his father's death. I guess his father died 6 months ago or something, I think is the storyline, and that Enterprise has just been out of communication for one reason or another, and Travis hasn't been able to get it. But
it was the mother sent a message to Starfleet headquarters 6 weeks ago, but they never got it.
6 weeks ago, and they never got it. Okay, yeah. It doesn't really line up. I was going to say that Archer telling him about the letter is funny that he waited so long, but he had no reason to tell him about the letter until that point, so it's not really a problem. But it is a lot of big asks. Maybe that even ties into the T'Pol storyline, which is, well, we'll stick on Mayweather for a minute, but I do want to move to T'Pol. T'Pol's storyline is interesting in a lot of different ways. The Mayweather thing is... I really don't have any problems with the bones of that story. In a lot of ways, it's the perfect Enterprise story in terms of what Enterprise seems to want to do, which is that it's incredibly stock, but not offensively bad. And any chance it has to reach out and be something larger than what it seems to be, it doesn't really do, except for these small details that are dropped every which way. Like even down to you were talking about the scene where he meets that girl in the bunk, his old friend or whatever. And he has I'm just stuck in discovery mode. He has a line where he's like, "Remember when we used to turn off the anti-grav and jump around on the bed?" I was like, are they implying they had sex? And I went for about 30 seconds before realizing that they were just talking about being kids, jumping around in a room without gravity. But any chance that the show has for some sort of interesting development, it won't take it. It'll just say, no, this is just these guys. And that's, it just ties into every interaction that Travis has with someone who's on the ship, to me, comes across as if they are two old friends who are meeting at a work conference, or like two old people who used to work together meeting at a work conference, where the first guy's like, he's doing a blowtorch in the hallway and he's like, hey, excuse me, sir. Oh, hey, Travis, good to see you again. It all feels a little bit pedestrian. And I think that that's maybe one of the reasons that the episode doesn't really grab you as much as it could. Yeah, I think I don't know what I would need for it to really grab me more, because the concept is fine. I think it's just that. Well, what's the central conflict between the brothers, I think, is the problem.
That's the thing. It's kind of, it just comes down to the other brother feeling like Travis left and that Starfleet is, hoity-toity or something. I don't know. As
his mother says, it's kind of confused because he feels that way, but his mother also says that even Paul is proud of you, And so I guess the main conflict there is just that he's kind of, is it jealousy? Is it just annoyed that he left and he had to pick up the extra work to do? Is he really proud of him? Go ahead.
I think the problem is they kind of don't really choose a side in the depiction of that story.
Yeah.
Because when he shows up and he first sees his brother again, they're super huggy and, great to see you. And then as soon as Mayweather's like, can I help? The brother's like, fuck you.
Yeah.
Get the fuck out of here.
You're on leave.
Yeah, I'm not exactly like that, but like that's the change that happens, and it's like, well, if they had played the brother a little bit more aloof about it and had been like, oh, I'd love to come and say hi, but I'm the captain now, so I don't have time to do that. Like, and he's being really passive aggressive about it. That might be a little bit more of that would create some more natural drama, I think.
Well, did you like
everybody's happy to see Travis except his brother, because his brother has to carry the weight of the ship, and Travis isn't there anymore, and Dad's dead, and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I guess I'm conflicted because I think I probably would have preferred just his brother being annoyed with him when he comes back than a greater shift in personality between the two crews. Like, I think that
sure,
I would really like to have had seen Travis be seen as more of an elitist for going off to Starfleet, and his modifications that he's constantly trying to make throughout the episode being seen as more irrationally met with negativity, because I think his brother's point about like, well, when you leave, who's going to fix this thing is a good point. Right. But I don't know if Mayweather is supposed to be seen as a character who is being selfish there, even though he's trying to help, that he's not thinking through the difference between things. I don't think the episode has a point of view on that.
No, not really. I think for both of them, they kind of play a little wishy-washy and don't really make too much of a stand either way.
Yeah. I think that if it's only the brother, I think I've seen that story so many times where it's just two brothers who are, angry, and then it's family basically, and then they get in a fist fight in the mud, and that's the end of it. Mm-hmm. I would have preferred to have it a little bit more global of an interaction, but his brother, I thought the guest stars in this were all good. I thought the brother was actually the weakest link. I thought that he wasn't. I thought that he was bad at being a captain. Although I wonder if that was intentional. That he was not supposed to be good. He doesn't seem authoritative in a way that the mother does, and even the friend and the other people like that.
Yeah, I liked the mom. She was good.
Mom was good.
Yeah.
That's pretty much it.
Although I feel like Travis and his brother, acting chops wise, were kind of throwing the same energy back and forth at each other, so maybe it didn't stand out as much.
Really? Yeah. I think I like Anthony Montgomery enough. I don't think that he's bad enough to. No. He has one emotional when he's crying about his father, I think, which came across fine. I didn't think that it was forced or anything. He's competent. Like, I guess the main thing about his competence as an actor is just that I don't really understand why the show doesn't write him more frequently than they choose to. There's nothing wrong with him, and he's got a kind of his main problem maybe at this point is that he doesn't particularly have a point of view as a character. So if you're writing for him, you're not particularly inclined to do anything because you don't know what he's actually supposed to represent.
Yeah, if he was written more like, say, like Bashir is written, as Mayweather is the one who is gung-ho for Starfleet and what Starfleet means and the future of Starfleet and all that kind of stuff, then you put him in this situation, I think you get a lot more starker contrasts drawn, and a little bit more drama baked into this confrontations he's having with his brother and his old way of life and stuff like that. But he's not. He's just kind of there.
Yeah,
it's funny because on Enterprise, his defining characteristic is that he is from a freighter ship. And once you put him back on the freighter ship, it's just sort of like, all right, well, I guess he's back on the freighter ship now. There's not really much distinction to draw here.
Yeah.
Because if on Enterprise, he's like, well, back on the freighter ship, you put him on the freighter ship, and he's like, well, I guess this is it.
Yeah. Or back on the Enterprise, he exists in relation to what ship he's on compared to the other one. Yeah, he's. I don't really have anything else to say about his storyline. It's fine. The T'Pol storyline I think is interesting for different reasons. Is Trip hitting on her?
I don't know, because I couldn't tell if they were trying to go for like a love triangle thing, because you've got Trip talking to her in a way that feels like he's, trying to, if not directly hitting on her, laying the groundwork to do that later.
Yeah.
And then you've got Archer, who pretty explicitly asks her out on a date, even though it's one of those like, well, it's not really a date, one of those kind of things. So it's weird that they're either laying out this sort of love triangle setup, or I mean, maybe it's just the modern TV viewer in me expects everybody to be trying to hook up with each other now because that's just what they do. Maybe that's not what they're doing, but it feels like they're either going for a love triangle situation or they're just very indecisive about who they want to pair off with T'Pol.
Yeah, to me it felt like Trip was actually interested in her and is laying groundwork for something through his insistence that she come to this movie night. Archer's reaction, where he overtly says it, but I think in a joking way, felt to me like there's another version of this script where T'Pol is wary about Trip's actions, and then when Archer vocalizes it, that's her kind of, it's like the escalation in the storyline where T'Pol starts wondering about like what everyone's true intentions are towards her. I don't think they did that. I think Archer's just supposed to be playing it off as a joke.
There's a third version of the script that they wouldn't let me film, I can tell you that much.
Rick, get back in your room. It felt like the focus was there in a way that I'm not sure was intentional. And I don't know if the writer just thinks that Trip is just trying to get her to do something and Archer is just being like following the T'Pol storyline that they've had of T'Pol should ingratiate herself with the crew more frequently. It feels like it falls right in the middle of all that stuff. And while I like the payoff to it, which is that she throws Frankenstein back in their face, I don't know if the payoff was really built off of what came before it in the first place, and whether or not that they're supposed to be showing T'Pol is not willing to be ingratiated, or if she learns something from it. But the takeaway she gets from it is not what I expected her to have, even though I liked her takeaway from it at the end.
Yeah, it was kind of strange because they have her talking as though she has no concept of what theater is, like conceptually. Which I found a little bit hard to believe because the Vulcans don't have some form of theater. They must.
Vulcans like art. Yeah. They like books, clearly.
Yeah, because she's like a bunch of people sitting silently in a room. I don't understand how that's a benefit to anybody. You're not going to the right theaters, honey. I like what she takes away from it. Yeah, but I also was a little bit surprised that she. It seems like it starts off as her not understanding the point of the gathering at all, and then on the other side of it, she's like, "Now I understand the point of horror movies," which I can appreciate because, like, I really appreciated her being reticent to go into it, and then she comes out on the other side and she's like quoting the movie and shit on the bridge.
Yeah. She takes a different perspective on it, which is that
they should have brought her to see. Should have brought her to. They should have played Army of Darkness when they saved the people at the end. She would have said like "Hail the King, baby" or something at the end.
Yeah, I like the ending just because I think that that's kind of a neat in-universe read of Frankenstein for the Vulcans to have about it, about the irrational mob that is humanity reacting to them introducing themselves to her. It's just I guess that if the episode is trying to get her to become ingratiated with the crew, it doesn't end with a moral that does that, because she kind of shows her separation from them in a way, which I don't think is a problem. It was just, it confused me by the time that I got to the end of it about what T'Pol is supposed to be, where she's supposed to be on this journey with them. But I liked it conceptually more than maybe I liked it execution wise. But
I think even along the way, it's not totally sure, because there's that when they're watching the movie, she goes very quickly from, grading papers or whatever she's doing while watching it into telling Phlox to shut up because he's talking too much.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit of a vague journey for her.
little bit.
But I agree.
She probably.
I think she would enjoy Bride of Frankenstein quite a bit. She should watch that one too.
Yeah.
And if anybody hasn't seen it, the other one, Son of Frankenstein, not talked about very often, but worth a watch. It's actually where a good chunk of the stuff that ends up in Young Frankenstein, the Mel Brooks movie, actually comes from Son of Frankenstein, and it's amazing how like a direct lift it actually is.
Yeah.
There's almost no joke added, and it's still funny. But it's Boris Karloff's last performance as the Frankenstein monster. It's pretty good. It also has Bela Lugosi in it as well.
She talks about how Vulcans have some sort of mental exercise, which is similar to a horror movie, where they're shown disturbing imagery in order to try to stir an emotional reaction. Kind of like practice for Vulcans, I'm assuming, just to be shown horrible stuff and then just to not feel anything about it. I was waiting for the end where the Vulcans have heard of horror movies, and she shows the Enterprise a Vulcan horror movie, and it's just everyone running out of the theater screaming in horror because the Vulcans are so good at not being terrified that their shit that actually makes them terrified is horrific and inspiringly horrific, I think.
Yeah, it's like Takashi Miike's Audition or something.
Yes.
With a man
vomiting in the bag.
Yeah, a man in a bag and a person eating their own vomit out of a dog bowl.
That's what I expected.
Also a great movie.
Yeah, it was kind of a neat tie-in metaphor, though. Like, we comment a lot of the time that they choose stuff that is just past like its copyright period, and they can freely include it into a Star Trek episode. But here, the Doctor, like, I thought that their conceptual understanding of horror movies was kind of a neat way to tie it into Star Trek, where even Phlox is kind of talking about resurrecting people and what the science behind things would be, and to Paula's position about what the actual theme of Frankenstein is to her. I thought it was one of the rare cases where Enterprise comments on actual existing culture in a way that makes sense in the 23rd century or wherever they are.
Yeah, it's I was actually a little bit surprised that Trip and Archer were so surprised by T'Pol's read on Frankenstein.
Yeah.
Because that read of Frankenstein,
them, I think it's she's insulting them, I think, with that take on it, which is maybe her point as well.
Well, but I mean, like, that take is the pretty much widely understood take on Frankenstein, that it's the monster is not the monster, it's the people who are the monster.
I think it's hitting them in a more personal way than just thematically understanding that at that point, where it's
I guess sorry, go ahead.
Well, it's just that you can kind of understand Frankenstein and be like, I'm not racist or I'm not bigoted. I understand this movie, but I'm not that way. And T'Pol is saying, remember when you guys freaked out when we showed up?
Yeah, that's the thing. You can recognize that stuff in other in areas that don't involve you and feel good about it. But when somebody else recognizes that in you, that's when you kind of are taken aback by it.
Yeah. Do you think she means to lash out at them for that? That's where the dating would have hit me. If she was trying to fend off their romantic advances, I think her trying to insult them at the end would be a Vulcan defense against that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't think that's what they're implying, but that would have been the way to go. I think she's just being honest and is not even really aware that she's impacting them that way.
She's metaphorically trying. They're metaphorically coming after them with burning torches, and she's trying to metaphorically push them away, only to be destroyed under the burning windmill of their lust.
Yeah, that's how I frequently describe my lust. A strange ending that I found poetic, but I'm not sure why. What's the point of the planet they visit at the end where all the life forms are being ejected from the volcano and they're studying them?
I don't know.
Does that mean something?
To do, I guess. It didn't seem to. I thought for a second it was going to turn into a prime directive thing.
Yep.
But no, they just seem to be there to check it out, see what's going on.
There's nothing thematic about being. It's like it's kind of being reborn or something, but it just felt really. It felt like such a poetic moment that no one commented on outside of the fact that they were surprised it was happening. And I just couldn't figure out how it was supposed to tie into Mayweather's story, because it felt like that should be the thematic tie-in. And it's just about being recognized or something. I'm not sure. It was a strange Enterprise like a lo-fi sci-fi reference. It is very Enterprise that they're just going off to see a volcano explode on a planet. You know, that's a very consistent Enterprise mission, that they're impressed by things like that.
Yeah. It reminded me of vacations I've taken with my girlfriend, because she likes to go see stuff, but she doesn't necessarily need to go in them.
Yeah.
So like we went to Montreal, and there are all these places that we were going to go, and it was, February, so it was freezing our asses off. And it was Monday, and on Monday, lots of museums and stuff are closed. And so we were just walking.
Annoyingly. Takeout.
Yeah,
Sorry.
I know.
Monday's the day you want takeout because you're easing back into it, and they're like, no, we're closed on Monday.
We have a coffee shop up the street from us that makes amazing coffee and has great bagels and everything. And they're right by a bus stop, and they're closed on Mondays. Like, you'd think that would be the day they would make all their money. But anyway.
Yep.
But yeah, we have a tendency when we go on vacation where it's like she really wants to go to this museum or something, and it's not so much that she wants to go in it, she just wants to see it. Mm-hmm. So we spent our last day in Montreal walking around in the freezing cold, just seeing the exterior of places. And worth it is what I'm saying.
Beautiful architecture.
Yeah. No, it was a great trip.
Excuse me. Yeah,
She doesn't listen to this show, so I can say that.
Yeah, are you in Montreal going like I want to be 5,000 kilometers away from Montreal at this point? You're gonna take us further away. You can see Montreal from a live stream at home.
Yeah.
It was just a small. Again, it's the breaking the ice thing where they're impressed by the comet, and there's kind of a charm in the novelty of the Enterprise just looking at a comet that they've never seen before. It's the same thing here. It just felt like they were reaching to connect something, and I'm not sure what the connection is. Maybe someone can tell me, but it's not bad for doing it. I like the little poetic moments that they make every once in a while. And that's pretty much it for that episode of Enterprise. Was there anything else that you had to say about this one?
No, but if you'd like to hear our take on what Frankenstein may or may not be about, check out episode 4 of the Rotten Horror Picture Show, where Amanda and I cover 1931's Frankenstein in its entirety.
Which horror movie would T'Pol have liked the most out of the Rotten Horror Picture movies?
Ooh, of the ones we've done so far, oh geez,
it's a very tough question. It's tough to remember which ones you've done too.
She's a scientist, so maybe she'd be interested in The Fly.
Yeah, Fly, Autopsy, I think, of Jane Doe.
Oh, yeah, that'd be interesting. Yeah.
She has, her science background was limited, I think.
Yeah, I just want to see a version of T'Pol where she starts wearing Fright Rags t-shirts, similar to this, where it's like a big disgusting drawing of Reagan from The Exorcist inside an upside down cross or something.
I don't think we'll get there, unfortunately. All right, then that's enough for Horizon. We talked about it. We'll take a break, play another clip. We'll come back, we'll read some patron thoughts, and give our final thoughts about Horizon.
I thought the protagonist was interesting.
Dr. Frankenstein.
No, his creation. From my perspective, this was the story of an individual persecuted by humans because he was different.
That's one way of looking at it.
In many ways, the film seemed quite prophetic.
Thank you very much for listening today. Thank you for supporting the show. If you want to support the show, you go to patreon.com/thepensky-file. A couple dollars a month, and you get extra podcasts. You get the ability to vote in the polls about what we talk about, behind the sort of commentary tracks and things that we do back there. We revisit old Star Trek episodes. And as always, if you're a Captain Tier supporter, you get a special thank you. Special thank you goes to Ben Douglas, Tark Latif, Joint Mango, Kyle Barrett, Mike Burnett, Matthew Ross, Andrew Sherlock, Cardinal Doomsday, Nathan Elliott, Sam McCuster, Matt Cutler, Nick Sergi, Grim Santa, Sean, Christian Pouch, Bradley Killens, Dwayne Hackett, C. Teague, Darth Moss, Kevin Reyes, Jordan Cooper, Vol 13 Hero, Rune Vendler, HH28, Stefan Minton, Derek Zajac, Paul Roscoe, Jacob123, Nick the Rat, Point Extra G, Garoppolo, John Zorn, Eric Santuan, Kevin Lowry, Captain Brazen, Jakey's Gamer, Patrick Seba, Corey Martin, William Scheisler, Soyan Blue, Zane Majors, Dave Davies, Retail, Olivier Pardue, and Worf's Tiny Brown Dicks. Thank you very much for supporting us on patreon.com/thepensky-file. And now we'll go to patron thoughts. If you're a supporter at the $5 and up level, you can leave your thoughts about upcoming episodes and we read them. Matt Ross says, Horizon, what's with the lame, cold opens? Is that buzzing in my head? Do you hear buzzing, Clay? It's in my head, I assume.
I do not hear buzzing.
Do you ever have those things where you just randomly hear a buzz and then you focus on it and it goes away? And
Yeah.
it's like something in your head or something has gone wrong in your
Wes, call the police.
ear. I think it's happening to me right now. Matthew Ross says, Horizon, what's with the lame cold opens? This is essentially sending a piece of...
They're terrible at cold opens on this show. I don't know how they could be so bad at it, but sorry, go ahead.
We'll come back to it. What's the lame cold opens? It's essentially sending a piece of wood home to see his angry brother, and then script of fortunate son happens. Oh, and there's a planet of lava. The end. 1 cargo container out of 5. This one, Enterprise's problem with cold opens is that they don't get to the inciting incidents in the cold open. They just kind of introduce the idea about it. This one ends with, is he called to the bridge or something?
I think so.
Someone calls him. He says, "I'll be right there," and that's the end of the cold open. And the only thing you learn about that is that you're reminded of the fact that he likes the anti-gravity thing. And if you remember why, it's because he grew up on a freighter. So they're trying to remind you of that, and to show you that this is a Mayweather episode. That's literally the only thing that's accomplished here. Yeah.
I find it particularly annoying because back when this is airing, the thing that would annoy me the most, like South Park did this all the time, and it would drive me fucking nuts. South Park doesn't have a cold open, but they have their opening credits. So it would be 9 o'clock or whatever, and South Park is on. You turn on South Park, you watch the opening credits, and then they immediately go to commercial.
Yep.
And so if you tune into The Simpsons would do it too. If you tune into Enterprise and you get this cold open, which is just this cold open is a great way to describe it. It's 30 seconds of not much. And then you go to 5 minutes of commercials. It's like, ugh. You're not doing a great job of hooking your audience member into the episode you're about to show them after commercials.
You're rewarding the chronically late, I suppose, who are going to miss the ads and won't pay any story price of not having been there for the very start. You can check in right 5 minutes in.
It's funny you say that because they seem so slight on this show that it almost feels like a conscious decision with that in mind, where it's like, a lot of people show up late to this show anyway because they don't watch the credits or whatever, because they're probably skipping it because of the fucking theme song.
Yeah. It makes it more, it's almost more of a bold choice to do something dramatic in the first opening minutes of when you were doing network TV and everyone had to tune in at the right time, You're almost disincentivized to do that because of the risk that someone's going to show up 5 minutes in and go, what the hell's going on? And then get to the end and not realize that the first 5 minutes were vitally important to it. It's kind of like, because Columbo would do that, right? Like the Columbo opening clue, you kind of always know who the killer is, but the Columbo opening is always revealing what. Am I misremembering Columbo? Like you always kind of see the crime or something, don't you, in the opening?
Yeah, I think generally on a lot of those shows you do. Like I think they still do that on like Law and Order. A lot of times you'll see the crime before the credits or something like that, which makes sense. Not
that it's vital to see, but it's nice to get the context of it. A Latte Librarian says, Horizon T'Pol is one of the best Vulcan portrayals in all of Star Trek. Blaylock knocks it out of the park. Hopefully this is the start of Mayweather turning into a real character, though if he's going to ask Trip to get the alien tracker off his family's ship, why would he lie to the captain about what happened while he was there? The call out to having families and therapists on starships was a nice touch. 3 underground microbes out of 5. I did like the TNG references about having a therapist on the ship and families and things.
I also, that's an instance where I think that was a good character conversation, because you've got Mayweather, who misses his family and wishes he could see his family more, saying, it would be great if they had families on the starships. And then he's talking to Reed, who is more of a military guy and doesn't like his parents. And he's like, I don't know. I think that would be awful. So, you get a nice little character conversation out of it. It's not just a wink towards TNG.
Yes. Yeah, good point.
Speaking of cold opens, the greatest cold open I've ever seen, just because of how long it is the 2009 remake of Friday the 13th, where I believe the credits don't show up for about 25 minutes into the movie.
Yep.
Because they actually essentially do an entire truncated Friday the 13th movie to get you through Jason's mother and Jason showing up and for the first time and killing people. They do that, then they give you the credits, and it's like it's got to be at least 25 minutes to half an hour into the movie.
Let's see here. Check out the Patreon for all coverage of Friday the 13th.
Starting this month.
Point Extra G says, reminds me, I have to put a poll up for the patrons. I haven't done that yet, so this will go out, and maybe there'll be a poll at this time. Excuse my lateness. Point Extra G says, what type of episode should Travis get for his go at the lead? How about a perfectly forgettable one? The episode is like Travis. There's nothing really wrong with it, but it doesn't do a whole lot for you, and you kind of forget about it. So really, this episode and Travis are the perfect pairing. Nick the Rat says,
every time we talk about Travis, I still get a little bit salty that they didn't go with him being a time soldier. That would have been so good.
Yeah. Anything. I think that's the I was actually thinking about it because the Phlox and T'Pol scene I liked because those two are clearly written to be the opposites of each other in terms of their species defining nature, where T'Pol is very reticent towards the humans and Phlox is all about absorbing whatever he comes across and is very happy-go-lucky. I think there's kind of a problem. I was just going through I was like watching that scene. I was going, I think a problem with Enterprise's cast is that there's not enough aliens in it, really. And then I was going, well, that's just kind of a shorthand way to say that I wish the other characters were written with more depth to them, really. Like, they don't have to be aliens, but they just have to have some kind of thing going. And it's just that it's easy to see in the T'Pol and Phlox stuff because their aliens' nature defines what their characteristics are. So it's more obvious, and the writers force it each time that it has to happen. But like Hoshi, Reed, Mayweather, that's a big portion of your cast that I really can't define what their thing is beyond the most surface level of characteristics.
Yeah.
Nick the Rat says, Horizon, Mayweather, 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 Mayweather. I give this 3 Mayweathers out of 4.
Like, imagine if Mayweather had been a time soldier and then he showed up in season 4 of Discovery. That'd be awesome. Like, he's got a direct link to the time period from which, I mean, even further back than the time period they came from.
Yeah,
that would have been cool.
Yep. He was there at the temporal accords that outlawed time travel, and now he's here to warn everybody it was a big mistake. Kyle Barrett says, Horizon, according to Clay's Rotten Tomatoes list, the 3 best horror films are actually Psycho, Get Out, and The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari, but I guess they didn't have the rights to these movies. This is the second and final Mayweather episode of the series, and it's never a good sign when they bring in the character's extended family. If anyone deserves a Detmer-style rant about how they fly the ship and nobody cares, it's Travis. I wish the episode took on an almost meta slant and explored Mayweather feeling like he's wasted on the Enterprise and is tempted by the captaincy of his old ship. At the end of the episode, Travis should have turned to Archer and said, this galaxy is like a big pussy just waiting to get fucked, and walked back onto the horizon to rule his shipping empire rather than stay on the Enterprise and do absolutely nothing for the next 2 seasons. 2 out of 5.
Yeah, I would say this is a better episode than that episode of Deep Space Nine where, what the hell is Dax's second name?
Jadzia or Esri?
No, Esri, where Esri Dax goes home for an episode, and it's just, ugh. So it's better than that one.
Yeah,
it's not saying much though.
It's definitely, the extended family is definitely an attempt to flesh out a character that you don't know anything about or why they, like in Esri's case, it's like, this character just showed up in our final season. We need to do something to expose who knows this character. Her family would definitely know her. How about we write a family episode? And there's just not many ways you can write a family conflict dynamic. You know, it's like all you really have is jealousy or latent tension. You know,
spite.
Yeah, it's there's not much you can do with it.
Yeah, I think the reason it's weird because I do think that episodes like this are a crutch for exactly what the reason you're saying, but the irony is, unless you do have an understanding of who the character is before you do the family episode, they don't work.
Yeah.
You can't just pull characterization or character out of thin air just because their mom and dad show up or something.
Right.
You know what I mean?
That's probably why they're so generic. It's because you get there and you're like, the family will expose them, and you go, oh, wait a minute, I don't know what they can expose, so we'll just have a generic.
Yeah, what is there to expose?
Yeah.
So that's why, I mean, Esri, your character comes from the actions that they perform in the story that you're telling. So then when you get to a family thing, you know the character and you understand where these tensions come from. It's not just the family telling you what the tensions are.
Yeah.
That's why the family episode of TNG works so well. Is because by the time they do that, you know who Picard is. You know where Picard stands and stuff.
Yeah. I like Hal's point about the meta slant about it kind of almost is there anyway about whether or not Mayweather really belongs on. I felt it particularly when Archer is talking up Mayweather at the start.
Mm-hmm.
It just feels like a character Bible description, like the show Bible, and he's just like, "You're the best pilot in the fleet. You're great. God damn, you fly the ship so well, Travis. Like I just can't. It's really empty, and they just have to make up the thing about the letter of his father, and his father's praise is equally vapid and empty. It's like, he's a great pilot. You'd be an asshole not to have him as your pilot, Captain Archer. So I would have appreciated a more meta take on it. Although, I also think the other thing I think about Mayweather is, imagine having a job where like this in his other episode of The Two Exceptions, where he spent 4 years. He probably learned his lines on the drive into the studio each day.
Yeah.
There's nothing. There's nothing to do as it, and he's getting. I don't know what he's getting paid. He's getting paid something. I'm assuming 95% of people in America would be happy to be paid to just come in every once in a while and do something like that. I'm sure it's unsatisfying, but I was just like, you got it made in the shade. If you're a main cast member that the writers just have no idea what to do with you, you just sit in the front chair and you go, aye. Yeah, and then you collect your $10,000 check at the end of the week. Not bad.
And I mean, if you're Enterprise, I feel like it's almost like if you've made it this long, you have tenure, and you don't even have to worry about possibly getting killed off because they never do anything that extreme on this show. So, what's the worst that could happen? You just get paid for hanging out.
That's kind of a modern take on it. You can't just be the actor who's going to hang around because the writers will be like, we don't need this character anymore. Let's just get rid of him.
Yeah.
And
you're going to get that one script where it's like, oh, they finally gave me something. Oh, I'm dead.
Yep.
Fuck.
That's flip to the back. Gone. Groppler John Zorn says, excuse me here. Horizon, like Dr. Frankenstein, Enterprise seems to have a gift of reconstituting decent stuff out of the previously unused material. Well, it's nice to see Mayweather get something to do. It's also apparent why the actor isn't featured so often. Still, dude deserves an arc, not just a line segment between two nearly identical episodes. Top-notch B-plot, though. It's a 3.
What was the other Mayweather episode?
Fortunate Son, where they find the other freighter that has the Nausicaan that they've captured, and they're trying to fight back against the Nausicans who are stealing their stuff.
Sure.
It has the ending thing where Archer and the captain talk to each other, and it's a very funny conversation. It's really just Mayweather's in it because he relates to freighter people, and they come over to the Enterprise.
Right. Yeah. Right. Okay. I vaguely remember that. Was that this season?
First season. That was the first season.
Okay. I was gonna say that feels like a million years ago.
I think this is the last comment. Captain Brazen says, as we return to Tycho Station, we see the crew of the Rociente making repairs after their escape from the ring gates. I'm not getting these references. I apologize. I'm not going to be able to pronounce it. Tensions with the threat of war between Earth and Mars.
Sounds hilarious, though.
Tycho Station sounds familiar, but I don't get the other one. I apologize. Tensions with the threat of war between Earth and Mars are on the rise, and you can see I avoided rewatching this Enterprise episode by watching season 5 of The Expanse. There you go.
Oh,
so he got me at the end. It's The Expanse, which I'm justified in not knowing. Okay, in regards to the episode, the only horizon I see is skipping this episode and going to the next. Travis is extremely sidelined and underutilized in his own show, more so than any character in Star Trek franchise, including Clay's beloved Tasha Yar. Happy New Year to you all, and may we all finish this horrendous year of 2020 and Season 2 of Enterprise stronger than Travis Mayweather's story arc. A low 2, wishing Season 3 was already here out of 5. So that's it. A lot of negativity towards this episode. I can't defend the negativity. I don't think I have to. Thank you, patrons, for leaving your thoughts. I'm going to give this a 3. This felt to me like the definition of what a 3 is. I don't know. I don't have anything else to say. I really, honestly, my main takeaway was I was entranced by the small details of this one. You know, not in a way that I'm even think the small details are really fantastic or anything, but I like the small moments of showing a freighter paired against the Federation. I like the hints at the piracy that goes on. We didn't talk about it. I liked the alien pirates plot here, which is they send out small ships to find things and tag them, and then they send a big warship after it to go shoot it. I kind of like that.
Galactus.
Yeah, that was kind of neat. I liked that. It's just small things like that got me interested in the episode, even if the story was pretty perfectly mediocre.
Yeah, I think I'm going to go 2 on this one. It just didn't grab me at all. I don't disagree that I think those smaller things were nice and everything, but just from a story standpoint, it was,
not enough.
Boilerplate family soap opera on one hand, and T'Pol Goes to the Movies on the other hand. So.
Yeah. Clay will give it a 2. I'll give it a 3.
What this show needs is an influx of cute robots that we can throw in towards the end of the season here and really get people to care about stuff.
Well, wait till everyone we meet along the way is here at the end. I don't think Enterprise will introduce any cute robots. I don't think, unfortunately. We'll meet a race of cute fix-it robots and impregnate them with the knowledge of the universe.
Now we're talking.
That's it for Horizon. Thank you very much, patrons, for supporting the show. Thank you for leaving me comments. Thank you, everybody, for listening. We'll be back with the next episode, which I think is called The Breach is the next episode. Yes, it is. So we'll be back with that one. Clay, do you have anything you want to say?
Yeah, we've got last week we had new Rotten Horror Picture Show, which was Society, I think, which is a very out there movie. It was a wild card pick, which I highly recommend you see if you like weird horror movies. This week we've got the final episode of season 3 of Batman the Animated Series on Badass, and we cover the final episode and we do a bit of a wrap up on the season and the series because we've now completed the technical definition of the entirety of Batman the Animated Series. Next season 4 everything kind of changes over. And Sean and I are going to be doing Sub-Zero, the animated movie. We're going to be recording that this weekend, and we're going to do a Q&A and stuff. So if you guys want to shoot us any questions, send them to at Badass Podcast. Is that what it is? Yeah, at Badass Podcast on Twitter, or through Discord or whatever, and we'll do the best we can to answer them.
Cool. Thank you very much, guys, for listening. Thank you for supporting the shows, and we'll be back with The Breach. We'll be doing one Enterprise episode a week for the time being until my new schedule settles in with the baby coming soon. But then after that, we should pick back up to normal routine. But it'll be a month or two, probably one a week. Enterprise on Thursdays.
How many episodes of Enterprise do we have left?
In the season or total?
In the season.
I think 5.
5? Okay.
I think so. I might be wrong about that. It's either 4 or 5. I think.
We're stuck in this season for like 2 months.
We've got one more month at least of this.
Boy.
But we started at mid to 2020, I think. So we're moving along. The Breach will be next. Thank you very much for listening. We'll see you next time.